folks. Cherikota coming at you from Narrandera. And there's, I've got my billy on. My billy's about to boil. An Aussie thing is a billy. I could have had a little kettle. But in the old days when I was a kid, Mum used to tell us about the swagmen that used to walk up and down the lengths of Australia looking for work. They always carried a billy. But anyway, if I look like a wreck, it's because I'm a wreck. I think I'm going to be okay. But that's the cause of the wreck of the Hesperus. Is the old swag person these days, I suppose, would have a rolled up bit of blanket they called a swag. So that's the modern equivalent. It comes with some design flaws in my opinion. You see how the roof sags? It kind of means that you got low head clearance. So I started out, you can see there, I started with the inflatable mattress, but once I've got the doona in there, and I had a sheet, thank goodness for the sheet, then it was too crowded and there wasn't enough room. So something had to give, so I had to take the air mattress out. Once I did that, I just had the doona. There's already a mat in there. It's about that thick. Once I took the air mattress out, then I had enough room in there too. The thing I liked about it was that the flaps could be open and have the air flowing through. Both sides have a flap, because it was quite warm till about, I don't know, midnight. Then it got cold, so I was able to roll the doona in half over the top of me and got quite cozy. I go for the 3 pillows. I like a lot of pillow. So yeah, I fell asleep eventually. And this morning we got a big challenge ahead of us. I must admit, even during the night I was thinking, this is ridiculous, I should just go home. All this freaking driving. But I think by the end of today I'm going to see results, you know. And last night wasn't too bad as far as organisation in the camp went. Just try and show you guys what's going to go on today, if I can. Alright, so we're there in Narrandera. I mean, I could go up that way, right? Remembering that the highlighted are the monuments. But I had planned to go to Kodaman through Cootamundra. They're great names, aren't they? Cootamundra. Sorry, I'm jumping all over the joint. And then across to Harden, up through Young, Woodstock, Blarney, and then Neville. Yeah, the Neville. And then up to Dubbo, up through Bathurst. There's Bathurst, and I remember it was Peter was executed with Breaker Morant. He was from Bathurst. This time of the morning I'm struggling to remember Peter's surname. It'll come to me. Anyway, and then up to Mudgee. Maybe that's as far as I'll get tonight. Mudgee. Here's a caravan park in Mudgee. Yeah, I was planning on going to Dubbo, but I don't really need to. I could get to Gunnedah and bypass Dubbo. Alright, I'll make a cup of coffee. Last night was tea. Actually had 2 cups of tea. That was the other thing. You know, I don't go to sleep early, so I sat having another cup of tea, and then you got to get up. I've got a pretty dodgy bladder at the best of times, so I'm up all through the night. But who cares, you know. I did say to Brian, this is probably why you enjoy getting away the tranquility. I had the BBC on the car radio, but, you know, you can't make much noise in these places. I'm used to camping around a fire with a group of friends, smoking bongs, playing guitars, and playing up, you know. You can't do that in caravan parks, obviously. I understand why now. Because of idiots like I used to hang around with. So yeah, make myself a cup of coffee, and I was going to say, yeah, no, I enjoyed listening to the BBC softly on the radio, and having a cup of Yorkshire tea. But this morning I'm going for the Moccona. I bought a fresh jar of Moccona Classic. So all right, I'll talk to you guys later. Anything of interest, you'll be seeing along with me. The Orange River Colony, November 1900. Boterville, the 5th and 6th of November 1900. Once De Vet's whereabouts were discovered, Lieutenant Colonel P.W.J. de Galle, who had been with 2 companies of Imperial Yeomanry, the 5th and 7th and the 8th Mounted Infantry, and 3 battalions of Mounted Infantry, together with the U Battery and a few Australian bushmen, moved rapidly towards Boterville. With Le Galle was the 4th Australian Bushmen's Regiment, including the South Australians, Delisle with the New South Wales Mounted Rifles, and the 1st Western Australian Mounted Infantry was some distance away to the north. Trooper Edward Hayden of the 4th South Australian Imperial Bushmen wrote a letter from Kronstadt on the 11th of November to his sister, Miss Jane Hayden, of the joy at being able to continue to give De Vet a difficult time. Quote, from Rensburg Drift we followed the Boers' retreat for about 9 days, when we met them again at Boterville, close to here on Guy Fawkes Day, and we had a real good thing in the shape of fireworks. But I must admit we were glad to leave the show. It was too late in the evening to do anything. The Boers were in a good position across the river, but left it at dark. We crossed at 10 o'clock at night and we camped. We saddled up at 4 next morning and found De Vet's lager at a farm about 3 miles ahead. Our scouts cut off and captured the outpost, and before the camp was thoroughly awake, we were right up to them. Colonel Le Galle, our brigadier, was shot and died during the day. The adjutant was shot dead, and Colonel Ross of the regiment we were attached to was severely wounded. 7 other officers were killed or wounded. De Vet and ex-President Steyn were both there, and the Boers were about 800 to 1,000 strong. We captured over 100 prisoners and 44 Boers killed and 21 wounded. Our losses were not so heavy, 14 killed and a few wounded. We got their whole lager, including 3 Krupp guns and a pom-pom, besides a 15-pounder field gun which had been taken from the British at Colenso, and a gun belonging to the Royal Horse Artillery taken from the British at Sunners Post last April. In the lager were about a dozen wagons and as many Cape carts. Around the wagons was a terrible sight. Dead horses and mules were laying about everywhere, and dead and wounded men were laying about the farmhouse. They fought for about 6 hours in the hope of De Vet, who had gone out with about 600 men surrounding us, as we were only 400 strong. But as we were supported by Delisle at about 9 o'clock, De Vet cleared off and we surrounded the farm, and the Boers who were holding it surrendered. Among the captured Boers was a lieutenant of artillery with all the Boer gunners, most of whom are smart, well-drilled soldiers, the majority foreigners. Trooper Charles William Jones of E Squadron gives us a New South Wales Mounted Rifles perspective. This account is extracted from a letter to Mr. Charles Besnett of Yass, New South Wales, written from Kronstadt on the 10th of November 1900. Quote, During the last fortnight we gave the vet a great smashing up, capturing 10 guns and 200 prisoners, not too bad for Australians to have a hand in. It was a great battle at Boterville. The Galay's division came on the Boers in lager at daylight and opened fire on them. We were camped about 8 miles off, and hearing the firing we galloped up to reinforce the division. Did not get there a bit too soon, as things were only middling. When we arrived, our troops were within 600 yards of the Boer lager, with their guns turned on and dropping shrapnel and shell in amongst the Boers, and the Boers were returning it to our men. They wounded 4 of our gunners and only left 1 man at the gun. Colonel Le Galay and Colonel Ross were wounded. Le Galay died that evening. It was very lively for about an hour. We eventually got them fairly surrounded, having very smartly got a gun on their right flank. It was never fired, for as soon as the Boers saw it, they put up the white flag and surrendered. I went over to the lager to have a look. It was terrible and sickening sight to see the dead and wounded lying about. Some were blown to pieces. It was a horrible sight. Lord Roberts has given the New South Wales government one of the guns we captured to take back with us. That will be better than the Sudan donkey. Yeah, hi folks again. Jarikota, of course. I'm in a little town called Coolamon, which I think could be considered outback New South Wales. But I stopped in this other place. I should have bought the Osmo in. I stopped at a place called Genmain, I think it's called, but there was this guy opening up right on the dot of 9 in the morning, and he had these junk shops on either side. Well, he called it antiques and collectibles. You'd have to be insane to... well, you could find stuff in there, but it was full of rusty stuff. So I don't know if you know this town. Can't see what it's called, but there's some interesting little shops here for sure. Look at this one. It's got a, I think it's a HG, isn't it? You'd know more than me. I don't think they're open and now. It's only just after 8. They got a I'm going to hazard and say it's a HG for sale. Oh, hang on, their door's open. Wow. What a beaut. What a beaut. Absolute beaut. Hey? Even comes with the sheepskin covers, although I think it's the owner's car. I don't think it's for sale. Up to Kingswood. I'll have a look inside. Like golf clubs left in the rain. Who's going to buy rusty golf clubs? But in his showroom, you couldn't move with the stuff, you know. It's just groaning under the weight of dusty, rusty. There'd be animals living in there. But and I can guarantee if you went to buy something, it'd be top price. So I should have shown you guys a bit. It was kind of interesting. He had like a HG Holden. I don't know if he was selling it. I think that was his own car. And his name was Bolo. But anyway, that was the last town. This is Coolamon. Right, a beautiful little town. Oh. And there's a monument here somewhere. So let's have a look. If there's going to be a monument in town, it's got to be here, I reckon. I can already see some mortars and a cannon, but that would be World War II stuff. Interesting to see quite a few Aussie rules grounds along the way. This is what they call the Riverina. And the old Bank of Sydney, Commercial Bank of Sydney. They wouldn't have been around for forever. Look at this. It's got actually might be quite old. It's got the crown on it. Oh, these are German guns, maybe. Right? Well, that's... Well, that's a German mortar. Go around and have a look at the German mortar. This is World War One. Now here we are. Well, first of all, we'll look at the mortar, then we'll look at the Boer War monument. German made. Fuck, it's a big... There's a big barrel in it. Can't really make out any writing on it. Push and this and button. Stand back and big bangan. They've all been painted. Right. That's great. I like the way they have the colour coding in these little towns. It's all that sort of light tan colour with a bit of green thrown in. Coolamon. Central garage over there. I saw a bicycle service centre on one of the walls. But here's the South African Boer War monument. Tick this one off, eh? Doesn't say much. Just 1901. Coolamon and district boys who served in the South African War. Okay. There's a shop open over there. Actually, I might go over there, see if they've got a knife so I can cut up my tomatoes and my cucumber today. Alright. Next town we're going through Junee, and we're on our way, I think, to Hardman or something. I have to look at the map. Alright, guys.
The Wagga Wagga Express, New South Wales, the 28th of December 1901. Coolamon, the marble tablet in connection with the returned soldiers from South Africa from Mr. Mark Fitzwilliam of Wagga has arrived and landed at the local School of Arts, being much admired by those who've seen it. It will be erected in the course of a day or two, and the necessary arrangements for the ceremony of unveiling are in progress.
Well, I pulled off the road as planned in just past Cootamundra. And hang on. I left Cootamundra on the way to Young, but I turned off the Young road to come to this little place called Harden. Because, yep, you guessed it. They got a Boer War memorial, but I noticed this Bill the Bastard. This is the Bastards Act. Come on. Oh, well, they're giving the horse some. Maybe the horse is Bill. Okay. Maybe I'm a bit harsh. Oh, shite. Here he is. Our First World War diggers. Poor old Bill. Come on, man. Yeah, the heart and lungs of an elephant. The power and intelligence and courage that stood above all of the 200,000 Australian horses sent to the Middle East. He was big, 17 hands, chestnut, and a whaler named after New South Wales. Well, they sent whalers to the Boer War. Bill Towers, or Ben was 17, supposedly. He was the first one to ride Bill. Bill had other ideas. Bill would only allow one person to ride him, Major Michael Shanahan. So Shanahan persuaded his captain, who happened to be Banjo Patterson, to let him take Bill into battle. He thought Bill would be ideal. And the Battle of Romani, 4 soldiers down, Shanahan rode Bill under heavy Turkish fire with super strength, got the 4 soldiers on, 5 in total on Bill. Bill had a big drink. Shanahan said to the horse, "It's time to get back, Bill. You're a bloody marvel." And they rode back into the war. Soon after, Shanahan was shot in the thigh and Bill was shot twice. They continued to fight until Shanahan collapsed into the saddle. Bill was aware of the seriousness and took Shanahan 3 kilometres through fighting straight to the vet. He was taken to the medic. As a result of his injury, Shanahan lost his leg. He helped Bill become a hero. So that's Bill. Got freaking 5 guys on him. Of course, there's no mention of Bill's fate, which was they didn't bring horses back. Shipped them over to the Middle East. And poor old Bill probably got sold to a Egyptian hay carter or something. Anyway, that's the story of Bill. Bill the bastard. There's a monument over here, right in the heart of Harden. So could be that the Boer stuff is over there. I'm going to do something a little unusual. There's the old troughs for the drinking troughs. Yeah, I'm going to make a brew. I've got some stuff back in Cootamundra to have a bit of lunch. Some jerky, or biltong, some bread rolls, some cheese. I've got the tomatoes and the cucumber from last night. So, yeah, nice. I'll have lunch and a cup of tea. Because, yeah, bloody long way to go. And there's no rush. There's a fancy looking fella over there in a cape. I need to find out who he is. This is something about the light horse. We know that they started first muster and enrolments of the Australian volunteer horse took place in Harden, Marumbara in 1897, and about 30 of those recruits went off to the Boer War. The first Australian horse was absorbed into the Australian light horse in 1903. So if you look back at the episode in Talbot, when I was visiting the family home of Captain Salmon, the guy that lives there talked about the memories of the people seeing Captain Salmon's son wearing his outfit, the light horse. Mackay. He's got the hat for the light horse. He served in the Boer War in the Imperial Bushman Regiment. Those beautiful sabres, eh? That's the one Major Eddie's got in his photo. If I ever find one in a op shop, I'd snap it up. His little notebook there. Take notes of any Boers he sees. That's a beauty. Oh. Engaging the Turks. Johnny Turk. It seems like Australians always gave the enemy the name Johnny. Look at that. Hand-to-hand fighting in Beersheba. The Battle of Beersheba. One of the last great cavalry charges. One of the horses has snapped and fallen over. Sergeant, at ease. Trooper. His sword is just plain. Not fancy, doesn't have the hilt. Australian horse, 1897. So, I don't know if there'd be a separate Boer War monument, but I'm gonna wander through here. Something else that interested me on the way in. I saw a sign for a Chinese cemetery back there at the cemetery. Kind of like to see that. Alright, well, we'll pause for the moment.
Just a little bit about Major General James Alexander Kenneth Mackay. Born in 1859, he died in November 1935. He was an Australian soldier and a politician. Always loved horses, amateur jockey. 1885 he joined the military volunteers and raised the West Camden Light Horse, commissioned as a captain in 1886. And he helped to raise the first Australian Volunteer Horse Regiment in 1897. His military force was captured in 2 poems by Scottish-Australian poet Will Ogilvie. Poems are The Real Mackays and Your Chance Mackays. Now we will hear some poetry from Ogilvie soon, because it turns out that Ogilvie was a good friend of Harry Breaker Morant. What are the chances? 1895, Mackay was elected to the Legislative Assembly, New South Wales. So in April 1900, he left to serve in the Boer War until 1901, and he was commanding the 6th Imperial Bushmen's Contingent of New South Wales. Now, he saw action at Elands River, and he was mentioned in dispatches. So I went to, and I spent a night at Elands River. That's where the siege was of the Australians, surrounded by the Boers. That's a fantastic place if you ever get a chance to go to. Elands River is over there towards Rustenburg. He was awarded the South African War Medal with 4 clasps: Rhodesia, Transvaal, Orange River Colony and the Cape Colony. And even when he was in South Africa, he stood as a candidate for the Australian Senate at the 1901 election, but he was unsuccessful. So he got back from South Africa in July 1901, and he resumed his position as the Vice President of the Executive Council, representative of the government in the Legislative Council in 1903. Yeah, but he was too old to go and fight in World War One. They considered him too old. He was promoted to Brigadier General and retired as a Major General, and appointed an officer of the Order of the British Empire on his retirement.